I don't know if that's the defect or the one that's going in. I'm not sure which one's which. I know they're both getting wet. Coming to you from the Great Wall of Tires. How you guys doing? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jimmy, we're making it work. We're not here to sell you tires. Some people want to, I don't really want to. What I do want to do is spend a day in the shop. I want to fix cars. Tires and oil changes are usually what you do so that you can find repair work. You don't usually do repair work so you can find tires and oil changes. Not a good long-term recipe. I'll have to make a video about it. I've been doing this a long time. Some of you might know because I'm an old man. But there are certain ways to do things. Productivity, efficiency, all those kinds of things. Time management, critical components to productivity in any repair shop, any business really. We're not here to discuss all of Jimmy's opinions on that stuff. We're here to do a timing chain cover gasket on that Buick from yesterday. We're going to finish that up today. We're going to try to. I might go into Thursday because we're working half a day today, because even though you're watching this deep into January 2025, it's actually New Year's Eve today. We'll be working half a day, but we're going to see what we can get done. Also, that fuel pump job on that F-150, I never really got it to act up, but I did see the fuel pressure fluctuating. If you saw that video, he wants to put a fuel pump in it, and we'll see how it goes from there. That's going to be this week. I doubt it's going to be today, but we'll see. Let's finish getting the shop open up, see what we can do to learn a thing or two and have some fun. Even though it is a little gloomy out, I think it's going to clear up and be a nice day today. We'll see. It's about 74 degrees right now. Let's get to it. Stay tuned. All right, before we start on the Buick, they wanted me to look at this real quick. We put a radiator in it, and ever since he sees smoke and it's got an oil leak. So, radiator didn't have anything to do with that. It's been doing it a while. But someone got a nice job out of it. I think someone did a water pump or something, or no, thermostat, radiator, some hoses. Oh, that's good work. All right, got a new battery. Definitely needs valve cover gaskets. I don't see any other leaks. Let's take a look inside. I believe it's a 2013 Honda Cross Tour. 2013, 6 of 2013. It's almost a 2014. 180,415 miles. And it's what we call in the we call that in the business a Sentia. Sentia worked on it. You know, it happens a lot. Someone has a high mileage older vehicle, they have something fixed, they think they're good to go for years, they won't have a problem, or at least 6 months to a year. It's also another thing too, I don't know if it's human psyche or whatever, but they spend money, then they pay more attention, and then they find things they didn't notice before, and it kind of makes it tough in the industry. It's one of the problems that we face, which is kind of what I like about those inspections. You should be catching everything you see. It should be on the inspection that have leaking valve cover gaskets. And I'm going to do a new inspection. Note that the valve covers are leaking, and it's not the thermostat or the radiator we put in. Give it a love rating of 5, maybe a 6. I don't know. What do you think? Feeling kind of generous, starting off 2025. Very generous with love ratings. I'm going to finish the inspection. I think it needs front brakes. They're pretty close. I'm going to have to take a wheel off and take a look, but I don't have a bay right now. We got a new guy rolling his toolbox in today. I'll just keep rowing. It's out of my control. Hey Tim, can I get one of them Evinrude 600s or whatever that thing's called? My boat doesn't go fast enough. All right, back on the little Buick from yesterday. You do have to let me get a better light. Camera light's not quite good enough. If someone might be interested in attempting this on their car, you do have to take these sensors out. Even though they clear this, there's bolts behind them. Two bolts on each corner. And then there's quite a few bolts for the timing cover. I separated them. These are the ones that go in, but not to the water pump area and that kind of thing. And these bolts all have to do with the water pump area, just to keep track of it a little easier. There's so many bolts in these timing covers on all modern cars. There's literally, I don't know, 25, 28 bolts in this timing cover. So, one more once over, we should be able to pop it off of there and see what it looks like. After the timing cover's off, I'm going to look and make sure that the crank gear is keyed. And if it is keyed, then I'm going to mark the chain to all the gears. It says something about removing these, but I think that's for replacing them. So we'll see what happens with that. If I get the cover off, I'll know more. And then you take this guide off. You take the guide that runs down the side here, you pry it back and put a pin in it, and then you should be able to get the chain off to do the gasket. That's the theory. Give it another once over. Make sure there's no bolts left anywhere. This is the oil pump that's built into the cover. 2 bolts right there. The question is, what's the best place to pry from? It's not for G-leg. You don't want to ever pry where the reluctor wheel is. No, that's not so bad. That's the oil pump in there. This is where our leaks were, right around where the oil pump cavity is. Uh-oh. Clean that area off with a little bit of brake clean so my paint would stick. And then I'm gonna let it dry before I disturb anything. We'll start getting those guides off of there. I got the crank mark down on the bottom of the crank gear. There's flats on the crank and the gear slides on the flats. So the cams have to be held because they're on springs, right? So the cam can turn when you take the chain off. So we got the bar in there locking the cams. The crank's not on springs. It's not going anywhere if I don't bump it and turn it myself. And with those flats on the gear, there's much less concern about timing being off. They do make a stop for the crank. But they're really more critical on like a Ford where there's a friction fit and there's no keyway or flat or anything. Then that crank just turns 2 degrees, the timing's off. But the way this is, if I mark it, it would have to be a whole tooth off. My marks won't line up and I'd have to bump the crank or something to make it move, right? These are locked in, and that's what's really critical on this engine. Every engine's a little different, so you can ebb and flow with the circumstances on some of them. I just hate the fact that the gasket is all one piece. You shouldn't have to do this to do the timing cover gasket in the first place, but that's Bill, Bob, you know those guys. I got about an 1/8 inch pin holding this. It pried right back. It wasn't really hard to pry back at all. I got the bolts out of this little guide now. I can pull this out, I think. There you go. I'm going to keep it right up here with the bolts. And now I can unbolt the tensioner. That's the same size bolts, luckily. Take those 2 guides off of there, and it should free up the gasket. Even if it goes under the crank, the cam pulleys a little bit, it should come out from under it, I'm hoping. If Bill and Bob are really evil, there'll be a dowel pin under there that I can't get it off without taking the cam gears off. But I can take them off if I need to. There's a hex on the cam to hold them and take the bolts out. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna hope I don't have to. I'd rather not. It's all up to Bill and Bob's evil ways. Which reminds me, I got new stickers. Hug and Engineer, they seem angry. You can check those out on stickermule.com. JMIW. There's no gaskets under that because if it leaks a tiny bit of oil, because it is oil fed from the back, if it leaks a little bit, it's not hurting anything. It goes into the crankcase, right? This is on a pivot. I think it will. I gotta look down there. I think it feels like it might be bolted in down there. I thought it would be on a pin, but it looks like there's a little hex down there. And then take off this other guide and the chain will lift off. I think these are smaller, just for fun. Oh yeah. See, it already moved. See the white paint? There's already one tooth off. When it goes back together, that margin for error is not there. I'm going to put this up here. Now, when I lift it off the cams, the only time that's going to matter when I start putting my guides back in it, and when I lift up the chain up onto the cams and put that guide at the top, that's when that has to match. But you can see that gear's not going anywhere. I don't think I even have to lift this all the way off. I think I can sneak the gasket out like this. Not that it's hard to lift it off the cams, but it's one less thing to do. Got to clean this all up a little bit. Oh, this is a good job for my carbon scraper. Let's get that. What's up, man? How's it going? Love this carbon scraper. If you don't have one, it's great for just this kind of thing. Way better than any razor blade would ever do. Alright, I made it short while you guys watched. Members get to see it first, but you guys will see it too. Everyone sees it. This is exactly what these carbon scrapers are best for. This is actually carbon. So this hardened carbon scraper, it's as sharp as a razor blade, but it doesn't dull like a razor blade does. A razor blade dulls pretty quickly, and it's much thicker, so it doesn't flex. It stays flat. Super handy if you don't have one. You need one. You got to be careful. This is cast iron, pretty forgiving. When I go to the aluminum, you really have to keep it flat. You don't ever want to dig like this on an angle. So nice and flat, nice and slow. One of the things about this job, in the directions, it says to put silicone here before you put the gasket on. Then you got to put all this together, torque everything. You don't get that timing cover on for probably a good half hour. I guess it's okay if the RTV sets up a little bit. Not really sure, because that's what's going to happen. You're not going to get it together that quick. We'll go see what the new gaskets look like. Oh, I didn't even consider the fact that they might not be right. Let's hope they're all right. Seems like there's so many options on cars nowadays. Finding the right parts can sometimes be a chore. I'm getting this all cleaned up, wiped down, and get all the oil off of it, because I need to put RTV here and here. It's hard to see those gaps, but the block splits for the crank. And then up here and here you have to put RTV. Everything else should be good, those 4 spots. So I want everything clean. I'm going to prep all this stuff. Timing cover mostly, but I want everything clean. We're ready to go back together before I put the RTV and the gasket up. The least amount of time the RTV sits without the pressure on it, the better. If it hardens and the gasket's lifted off, I'll still have a leak when I'm done. Bill and Bob, you crazy. See what they did? The pickup to the oil pump is part of the oil pan. You guys are crazy, man. I mean, I guess it's fine as long as the aluminum doesn't crack or anything like that, but normally an oil pump pickup is going to have a screen and a tube. Maybe there's a screen in there, I don't know. In any event, we're going to clean her up and start putting this thing back together. I got a new front crank seal, the whole deal. Clean that out a little bit. Apparently, pry bar can't be a hammer. I gotta say, this little silicone kit, Victor Reigns, pretty nice. Comes with a little RTV tool. Just gotta pierce the top. Now off we go. I am gonna use my little application deal. use the Icon flush cutters. I want about a 4mm opening in it. And just put on the edges here. Doesn't take a bunch. Now, sneak this underneath here. Smeared the silicone a little bit, it's alright. There's a dowel, and there's a dowel here. That should hold it all snug. I don't want this there, I put a little too much on it. I'm gonna get some guides. I'm gonna get this on here. It's not gonna stay probably, but we'll see. Yeah, see it moves off it. But once I got it cleared of the peaks, now I can roll it back and forth. All these timing chain components look good. My preference would be to change them, but the customer didn't want to pay for it and the insurance company didn't want to pay for it, so it's not going to happen. Let's actually roll this over one tube first, because I probably won't move it after this is on. It won't come off here, it'll come off of there. And that's my white mark. It might be hard to see. It's starting to get some oil on it. That's why I didn't use Sharpie, because the Sharpie might dissolve the oil. I mean the oil, yeah, you know. I gotta look up the torque specs. I should have probably looked it up already, but I didn't. Tell you the truth, they weren't that tight. It's probably something like 89 or 105 inch-pounds. It came right off without any trouble. This one, I do have to go upstairs and verify my marks up on the cams too. Although everything seemed to go pretty smoothly, and there wasn't any jumping around of anything while we were working. So I'm feeling pretty confident it'll be okay. I'm gonna put the tensioner on. I've got a little bit of silicone. Ugh. Man, the magnets are strong. I got a little silicone oozing out of here. I don't want that. I'll use a bolt to pull it out. Okay.
You said you approved the cover gasket?
I guess it's probably better that I left this up top, because I really need to check my marks, which the marks are good. So we're good to go. Now without a flashlight, I'm not going to tighten this with my 3/8 ratchet, but I am going to snug the bolts up with it. Very careful. I don't know why it makes me a little nervous. Anytime there's an opening, you don't want to be in a rush and drop one of these bolts down there, because if you can't fish it out, you'll be sad, and nobody wants that. One more once over. Mark. Mark. And mark. So we're good. Now I can pull this pin. I'm trying to work precisely and rapidly. Where does my pliers go? The pin's got some load on it. I could also probably pry it against that, but I think this will work. I don't need any more RTV, because the RTV goes under the gasket. The gasket's all one piece, like the timing cover. Okay, all those guide bolts, 71 inch-pounds, the Timing chain tensioner 71 inch-pounds. This one's 71. The valve cover is 71. Most of the timing cover bolts are 71. The larger bolts are 26 foot-pounds. So everything's in inch-pounds other than those. Let's get this cover on here before that RTV sets up too much. Last minute wipe down, make sure there's no oil. Those rubber gaskets are a little more forgiving than if it was straight RTV. You definitely don't want any oil if it's RTV. Ideally clean either way. The oil pump will fit over the crank and push that little protector off, which helps the seal go on facing the right way so the lip of the seal doesn't flip over. Really hard to see down there. Hold everything in place. Just look at the top of the cylinder head and know that I'm close. Might have to do this from underneath. Can't quite get enough leverage to push that. It's got to go down. There are some different length bolts you got to watch. Basically, it looks like there's 3 different length bolts, I think, maybe 4. I didn't even really count them all, but I know there's multiple different length bolts. So when the bolt goes in and first touches the thread, it'll have about 15 millimeters of thread sticking out of the timing cover, no matter where you put them. If it's in the right place, they'll have about the same amount of the bolt sticking out. So that's how we're rolling. I got the 2 big bolts. These are the ones that get 26 foot-pounds. Those are for the exhaust. These go up in here. So far, so good. Not going to start bragging yet. It's a short day today. If I can get the oil pan and the valve cover on, I'll be happy. We'll have to finish it up Thursday, I'm sure.
That is looking pretty good. I don't think that was a gasket in there. Maybe silicone around it.
Matter of fact, I didn't get a water pump gasket, but we'll worry about that on Thursday. Try to stay in the center of the rail, except when you get to the bolts. You don't want tons of silicone going down there, so trying to be a little gentle with it around that area. You want it sealed but not flooded, because it will restrict oil flow. I wish when they were this intricate they'd give you a gasket, but they don't. It's alright. I think we'll be good right there. Get the rest of these bolts in, snug the pan bolts up, tighten the bolts to the bell housing, and snug those up, not all the way. Torque the oil pan bolts, and then torque the bell housing bolts last. Let's see here. No, that's not right. There it is. That's the harder one. I should have popped those bushings back if I'd have thought of it. I'd have given those bushings a little tap. But fire bar got it done. I did not disconnect the wires from that. I'll flip you guys over a second. I hope you're not getting dizzy. I'm gonna wait on the compressor in its bracket until this is back up on the mount. It's a little easier to work in the front. Everything's torqued. Good to go. Now, this has a generous taper to it to help, but that seal faces the wrong way if I remember correctly. A little dust and lint on this. Now, for some reason in the destructions, it showed this hole at the top, but it doesn't matter. This is hexed, and then a seal. Unless these hexes are different sizes, this has to fit on the crank. So I'm going to pull this tool keeps that seal from relaxing too much. Pull it out at the last second, put this in, but I'm going to see how this goes on the crank and this drives the pump. And I believe that this faces about 11 o'clock roughly, something like that. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And this is going to want to come up a little bit too. It'll have to all feed in. There you go. That should do it. And I clean some of the oil off of this. A tiny oil film is okay. You don't want it saturated in oil. It's going to mess with your torque specs. Unless the torque spec says to put some motor oil on the threads. I believe this is 110 plus 50 degrees. I'll double check that. It's like the old days. Where'd everybody go? Everybody's gone. I'm the only one here working. The heck? I can't pay the bills by myself. Ford, Chevy, they get along a lot better than people think. A little dab of this wherever there's a joint, just like everything, all the other areas. Anywhere two pieces of metal connect, the gasket won't go down in that relief. So a little bit of this stuff. Really like this RTV. Got my new gasket in place. Double check it, make sure it's all in. And really, I'm really glad to get this on here so it's not sitting while we're closed for a few days, a couple days. Open up. And it's a tight squeeze with the harness, but it went on. There it is. .71 pounds. I'm going to snap this in first so I can hear a nice click. There it is. This, I'm going to wait on that till I get the water pump on. Cam sensors. I'll park that car and get my door, Bill. Huh? I'll park that car and get my door. All right. Okay. Not doing it, I see. That's fine. If I can get in here, there's a lot of stiff plastic brackets on the wiring harness. That's how it gets broken when you work on it, I guess. But these on there. Goes like this. I'm not sure what those are, but I know one thing. We are closing up. Everyone's gone already, so Joe's closing up. He's still here. It's New Year's Eve for me, even though it's a week later for you guys. So we're closing early, buttoning things up around here. The last work day at 2024. Look at that green monster. The green monster just waiting on me. Once I get done with Donnie's Ferrari, that'll probably be after it. We're gonna finish closing up, get the shop buttoned up for the day. Got a lot done today. That Buick is just about coming together. We'll have to do the water pump, the front mount, a couple of little odds and ends, the compressor bracket, and that thing will be done. Some oil, be good to go. Hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed your company. I hope you'll torque the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't yet and you're new here and you like realistic automotive repair videos. That's my specialty. There's a lot of good channels out there that aren't realistic, but they do some fun repairs and projects and restorations and things. But what we do here is realism. I work on flat rate and take you with me for the journey. So I hope you enjoyed it if you're new, and I appreciate your support if you've been around a while. And even though it's a week late, I hope 2025 is going to be bigger and better than ever. Hope I see you in the next one more than anything, because you're awesome.